Welcome to the Suffering Meatball Chronicles, the podcast where we relive the sound and the sweet chaos of live music. We are your hosts, Johnny Epiphone, and I'm Rob Henry. And here's the deal. This show is all about concerts we've seen, the stories we've lived, and the moments that made us feel alive, even if the details are a little fuzzy.
We may not always remember the exact dates, the full set lists, or even the band names. Please don't judge us. But we remember how it felt, from tiny dive bars to massive stadiums, from legendary acts to that one guy with the harmonica. This is our passion for live shows, loud nights, and the beautiful mess of music fandom.
So grab a drink, settle in, and let's stumble down memory lane. Because even if the facts aren't perfect, the vibes are.
Hey everybody, this is Johnny Epiphone here with you, and Rob Henry with you as well.
Hello everybody.
And we're here to talk about Black Sabbath and Ozzy today. And
Yeah,
I guess
Black
and
Sabbath.
by extension Dio and Tony Martin, because they were the other two singers of note that went with Sabbath.
We cannot forget that great 80s Sabbath with Dio. It has to be in the conversation. And during the whole end thing that they did a few months ago, none of it was mentioned. Nobody gave any props to Dio or Tony Martin for bringing Sabbath forward after Ozzy.
No, and I it was a little strange because when Dio came in to the band, he totally revived the band. I mean, his singing and his lyrics brought a new era to the band, and it really helped out.
I was going to say, we don't want to take anything away from the original four members and what they accomplished in the late 70s and what they brought forward and how they created metal. But we definitely want to take note of how the other two guys in the band picked up the torch and just moved the band forward as far as metal goes.
Yeah, and kept the fire burning.
I mean, yeah,
because Ozzy was doing fine with his solo career. He was chugging along and becoming bigger than ever.
Yes, those two first solo albums were amazing. And again, we don't want to take anything away from Ozzy as a solo artist. We just want to talk about Sabbath as a whole, right? Because that Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell album go down as some of the best metal albums ever created. And it was because of Dio, grabbing the flag and saying, I can do this. This band is going to move forward. And a lot of people embraced it. A lot of people didn't. I know that I definitely embraced those two albums. Like I wore that stuff out.
Well, I mean, let's face it. Technically, Dio, much better singer than Ozzy. And nothing off Ozzy, because, I mean, Ozzy's Ozzy.
That's a good point of contention there, Johnny. He's a better singer.
But, I mean, they're different flavors. I mean, Dio, much more technical singer. Precise. Ozzy, more feeling and grit.
And Dio was really successful in his solo career. He didn't have to join Black Sabbath. He could have stayed a solo artist and just been as popular as he was.
He had just left Rainbow, so he hadn't started his solo career yet until he left Sabbath.
Totally wrong. Thank you, Johnny. Fact checking my brain. The memories aren't quite as clear as they should be. But yeah, he made a name for himself in Rainbow.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure why if he left Rainbow or was fired. Richie Blackmore, famous for always changing things up.
I'm sure GPT would tell us, but I'm not going there. I don't really care what GPT says about Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah.
So I was late to the Black Sabbath game. When I say I was late, I didn't get Masters of Reality till, probably freshman year of high school. So 80, 81, when I really started looking back at all those great Black Sabbath albums with Ozzy.
Well, that's still, I mean, I didn't, I guess the first time I heard Sabbath was on the radio. I probably heard Iron Man or Paranoid on DC 101.
Yeah, of all places, they're playing that.
But actually, my first album I got by them, my sister bought me for my birthday one year. And she bought me Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, which is still my favorite Sabbath album to this day.
Do you still have that vinyl copy?
I do.
Wow, Johnny, you need to break that bad boy out, and I bet you it's cracking and popping all over the place.
Yeah, probably
wore that stuff out. I know I did. If I had those albums at one time, they were lost or given away, or who knows where those albums went. It's just kind of sad. Looking back, I wish I had held on to all that stuff. But I didn't. Life has a way of changing, and some things don't become priority. And carrying around 1,000 records with you from place to place to place, definitely.
Tell me about it. My record collection is ridiculous, and I dread moving it every time I have to move it.
Yes,
right now,
Johnny,
it's in storage unit.
Yeah, you do have a lot of vinyl. I don't. I just didn't keep a lot of it. In those days you could go into Record Convergence like we had spoken before, and you could trade those albums in and get newer music, new cassettes, right? That was the thing, was the cassettes where you could actually play that stuff in your car. It's easily transportable to a party. You could make a party mix with the cassette or whatever. And that's what I used to do.
Yeah. What I used to do is I used to buy the album and then record it and not play the album so it would stay pristine, and just play the cassette tape. And of course you could play it in your car, which you couldn't do with an LP.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's I think they did have a couple of setups like that, but you go over a bump and the needle would just scratch across it. There was no stability to it, so it didn't last very long,
No, I think that was like a 60s innovation where there was actually a turntable in a car, and they soon realized that wasn't going to work.
Yeah, it was like an aftermarket thing you'd put in your Chrysler or whatever, and it just, it did not work. It did not transfer over. That's kind of funny. We're old, man. All right, back to Black Sabbath.
Sabbath. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, like I said, I was late. I didn't get to see them live. I was a little kid, just like yourself, kid of the 70s. I did get taken to some concerts by my sister, Pat, but it wasn't Black Sabbath. And we can talk about that on another episode, and maybe invite her and try to figure out the memories that she has taking a 5-year-old to a concert, or an 8-year-old to a concert, general admission, and having to figure all that out. But I did catch Ozzy on the, the Ultimate Sin tour twice. And I think we talked about this before. I saw him in April 16th of 86 at the Capitol Center. And I have to acknowledge the doggy.
Yes, that's Riku.
All right, Riku, the new dog for the Judge household. She's a cute little dog. Okay, so 86, I saw him at the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, but we didn't go see Ozzy. We went to see Metallica, and then we saw him again in 86 and August 2nd at Merriweather Post Pavilion. That one I did stay for. We can talk about that show, but it wasn't a Black Sabbath show. It was an Ozzy show. So that was the first time that I actually saw Ozzy. But it was because we went there for Metallica.
Right. Yeah.
We were Ozzy fans, but we really didn't. You know what I mean? We were on the fringe.
Every metalhead in the early 80s was an Ozzy fan, I think. I mean, just because Sabbath was, been there, done that, raised the flag, planted the flag, and kept the fires burning.
Right.
But I was
And
at the Cap Center as well.
okay. Sorry, I had to play that because that's the beginning, this first song or track off of
Volume 4.
Masters
Oh
of
no,
Reality.
Masters of Reality.
Okay, Johnny, now that I've told my early experience with Ozzy and not seeing Black Sabbath till the mid 90s, you got to see them toward the 1989. And I want you to tell that story.
Okay, well, I didn't get to see Black Sabbath actually until Tony Martin came along and was singing for the band. I never got to see him with Dio or Ozzy, unfortunately. But with Tony Martin, I got to actually meet the band. And during that time, the band consisted of Tony Iommi on guitar, Tony Martin on vocals, Neil Murray on bass from Whitesnake, and Cozy Powell, who also played with everybody, including Whitesnake, was the drummer in the band.
Cozy Powell. I have that record on the back of my on my wall behind me. Johnny took the Cozy Powell Tilt album and got it signed for me by Cozy Powell, the late great Cozy Powell. But go ahead and finish your story. I just had to bring that up.
Oh, that's quite all right. Yeah, Tony Martin was a really nice fella to meet. He, I remember telling him, I was trying to compliment him, saying his voice was similar to Dio's, and he corrected me and said, "No, Dio sings like this." And then he sang a line from Mob Rules, and then he said, "And I sing like this," and he sang something from Headless Cross. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I can see the difference. It's different, but a little similar. But we can agree that you're both technically good singers." And
did Tony Martin during the shows, at least this show that you saw, did they play Black Sabbath? I mean, like the older Black Sabbath songs, like they did play Sweet Leaf,
they actually
Paranoid and all that stuff. How'd he do? How'd it sound? Did he try to do Ozzy,
good.
or was it himself?
He was himself. They actually played Black Sabbath from the first Sabbath album.
Wow.
Yeah,
and he was able to pull it off.
He was able to pull it off. They played Paranoid from the second album, and then they played like a bunch of Dio era songs: Neon Nights, Children of the Sea, The Mob Rules.
All great songs. All really great songs.
Heaven and Hell.
And Dio had replaced Ozzy, and then Tony replaced Dio.
Well, they went through a revolving door of singers for a while. Like Glenn Hughes was in the band. Ian Gillan was the singer for an album. Ray Gillan, who went on to Badlands, sang on an album, and his vocals were replaced by, I can't remember who now. But yeah, between Dio and Tony Martin, there was like maybe four different singers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know that. But Tony Martin went on to kind of head the band for a few years. Yes. Until Ozzy decided. Was he there when Ozzy decided to come back? Or obviously we're talking about the revolving vocalists that played after, that were in the band after Ozzy.
Yeah, I think actually Dio came back for the Dehumanizer album, and then in the late 90s, Ozzy came back and they started doing reunion shows.
Yes, because at that point, Ozfest had been established, and he was doing solo. The first few incarnations of Mayhem Festival, or the Ozfest Festival. Sorry. The Ozfest Festival, Ozzy was doing it solo, and then the band Sabbath got back together, and then they were the headliners.
And let's give props where props are due. Is Ozfest was awesome. I never went, unfortunately, because I was burnt out on festivals by the time it started. But Sharon really poured her heart and soul into the Ozfest every year, and it was always successful.
Yeah, where would Slipknot be if it wasn't for Ozfest? Sharon gave Slipknot was scary, like out of control, chaotic, angry music. And Sharon gave them a chance. And look, they're one of the biggest metal bands ever. I mean, Slipknot was just amazing. But it was because of Ozfest, and it's because of the work that Ozzy and Sharon did by inviting new artists that hadn't been broken yet or had a small following locally, and they saw something and brought those folks with them. And it wasn't just Slipknot, Lamb of God, right? I'm not saying Lamb of God wouldn't have broke. By the way, I'm a huge Lamb of God fan, and that'll be another episode. Have a lot of great Lamb of God stories. I saw them this year. They were fantastic. But they started out, they came in at like in 2001, and I think that following year they were on that Ozfest tour. So just to, there was no internet at that time. So if you wanted new music, you had to listen to the radio or go to a show and happen upon, one of these bands, or you had to have somebody in that region like I was. And MTV, let's just say MTV was also there. Like
They were a great generator of interest in new music at the time.
Right. As was Ozfest. Yes. Right. Not only did you go see Ozfest for Ozzy and Black Sabbath and all the other great metal bands that played leading up to, but they had, 3 stages or 2 stages. And I remember seeing Slipknot close out that second stage at in Bristol there at Jiffy Lube Live, and that was a great memory. That was a fantastic set. But we don't need to talk about Slipknot. We're talking about Ozzy. Go ahead and tell the story about your June 4th, 1989 there at Meriwether Post Pavilion.
Well, at that time, Sabbath was signed to IRS Records. They had left Vertigo. Over here, they were on, was it Polygram, I guess? They were over here. No, that's irrelevant. Anyways, they were on IRS Records, which was not known for heavy metal at the time. Still isn't, actually. I mean, when you think of IRS back in the 80s, you think of the Go-Go's, Belinda Carlisle, and
kind of like new wave pop music, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly. it was some kind of rock, but
But Sabbath needed a new home, and IRS provided it, and they were touring for the Headless Cross album. And like I said, Tony Martin was the singer. And I had an opportunity to meet the band after the show. I was there with my girlfriend, Annie.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And it's because working at that radio station, you got the opportunity to do that working at GMU?
Yes.
WGMU? Okay.
Exactly. And the show was good. It definitely wasn't sold out. It was in Meriwether, which is a pretty big place. We were seated in the pavilion, which was nice. But there was a good amount of people on the lawn. I'd say it was about 3/4 full in the pavilion. And they played a good show. They opened up with Headless Cross from their new album, but then they went into the Dio era and played Neon Nights and Children of the Sea from Heaven and Hell.
Cool.
And they played stuff from all eras of Sabbath. They played Dio stuff, they played Ozzy stuff, and they played stuff from their new album, and it was good. My only complaint might have been that at the time, Jeff Nichols, who was, I believe, the keyboardist, was maybe mixed a little high for my taste in the live mix.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think of Sabbath, you think of Tony Iommi's guitar, his crunchy guitar, not like keyboard melodies. But anyway, it was a good show. They played a lot of surprising stuff that I didn't expect. Some of my favorite Sabbath tunes like War Pigs and Iron Man and Paranoid.
Yeah, all great tracks. I mean, what would a Sabbath show be without those tracks?
And they played Black Sabbath from the first album, which blew my mind. I don't think Sabbath had played that live in a long time.
Yeah, we know who was making the set list for those shows. I noticed that on your notes that we took, there was only 9 dates.
Yeah, unfortunately, the tour wasn't selling well, and I think we were at the second to last show of that tour before it got scrapped. Unfortunately,
but it wasn't due to sloppy play and people showing up all trashed and not being able to perform or anything. It was just a matter of ticket sales, and Ozzy had kind of stolen some of that valor that they had. You know, Ozzy was on his way up, and everybody was focused on Ozzy.
Yeah,
right. And we as true metal fans didn't just throw away Black Sabbath and just listen to those first albums that came out with Ozzy. We followed them through. You know, and with great songs like this right here. I mean, I remember looking at the front of this album and just staring at liner notes. You know,
yes.
Mob Rules. What a great album.
Yeah, they played the Mob Rules in their set that day.
And you got to meet the band. Was that before or after the show?
After the show.
Okay.
And they were all really gracious. And I think they were all really surprised at what a fanboy I was to Cozy Powell, because I had brought like 3 or 4 albums for him to sign.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's funny. I didn't even think to get my Sabbath album signed by Tony Iommi. And
you did take the jewel case from my Masters of Reality. You took the jewel case liner notes, and Tony did sign that.
Oh,
and
nice.
For years, I've tried to figure out a way to display the signature, and I think I have a good idea how to do it, but you know, it's going to look kind of awkward. You're really going to need to know what you're looking at. But
right.
So the band plays, and let's talk about Merriweather Post Pavilion. So folks that live in the DC, Maryland, you know, Southern Virginia, the whole mid-East Coast, that venue had been there for years. And it's one of the very first like outdoor pavilion lawn style, you know, venues that went to be kind of the format or how they build new venues today. And the venue sold that has trees that are surrounding the lawn, and up on the top of the lawn, there's some trees, and there are these really, really old trees. Behind the pavilion is a catering area and trailers, right? Each individual trailers, right? So did you go in one trailer and all 4 of them were there, or did you go into separate trailers and met them all separately, or was it in that catering area type of thing? Was it like a media event, or was it just you?
It was like a media event. There was definitely other radio people there. There was like a shelter that had been erected, you know, like a tent top, not a tent, but like I can't think of the right word.
Like a catering tent, but like a tent with no sides, just the awning over it and lots of poles.
Yeah. And, you know, it was after the show. So I don't know if they had a chance to shower or not, maybe they
I was going to ask you that. Did they go? Yeah, I'm sure they did. Well, that's where those separate trailers come in, because they each would have a separate trailer, their own bathroom, their own catering, their own, rider stuff that the venue provides for musicians. Only blue M&Ms type of thing. I don't think that was the case. I don't think that was the case with Black Sabbath, but that's how it worked, is that they had these different trailers set up. So obviously they had like a tent set up for media. And do you remember how many media folks were there? Was it like Circus Magazine? Oh, this is the second to the last tour for Black Sabbath or whatever. Nobody knew at that time they were going to cancel, right? Or
no.
Okay.
There was, man, it's hard to remember because I was so focused on I'm getting to meet Cozy Powell and Tony Iommi.
Cozy Pal. That's great, man. That's great. And Cozy was also in what band before he joined Sabbath?
I think immediately before Sabbath, he was in the last band he was in was Whitesnake in the early 80s.
Yeah, that was the British Whitesnake, not the washed over American version of Whitesnake.
Yes. He was on the Slide It In album, I believe.
Yeah, that's the one that broke him in America. Slide It In, right?
Yeah,
and then,
of course,
then their older stuff got more popular.
Was the Whitesnake album, and what was that, 87, I guess? He did not play on that album. That was Tommy Aldridge, maybe? I can't remember.
What a fantastic drummer Cozy Powell was. Underrated.
Yeah.
You were probably one of 3 people there that probably knew who he was.
He played with everybody. He played with Gary Moore. He played in Rainbow. He played.
I remember the Rainbow years.
Almost everybody in hard rock he played with at one time. And he had his own solo thing where he released solo albums. Cozy Powell Tilt, Cozy Powell Octopus, Cozy Powell, the one with the pool cover. Oh, that's Tilt.
Yeah, Tilt. Yeah, that's the one where he's face down in the pool, or somebody's face. I'm looking at it behind me right now.
Yeah.
One of my prized possessions. Being in the business, I don't ask for autographs. I'm not allowed in a lot of situations to ask for autographs. So to have something signed by that man, and have it displayed is, I'm very proud of that. And the fact that you took the time, and I thought I was the only guy, but there was 2 other albums there that he signed. Obviously they were yours, right?
Yes. The sad thing is Cozy Powell passed away, I believe, in his 50s. It's a really bizarre story. I read about it, not knowing at the time. I remember when he died at the time and just thought he had a car accident and that was the end of the story. But apparently it had something to do with some woman he was involved with, where he went to go help her out of a situation and was maybe speeding a little too much. And he just got
just driving a fast sports car through the hills of LA or something stupid like that, and lost control.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely died very early. And again, unless you were into drummers, which usually is the last person you look at the band, unless you're, Neil Peart or something like that, where you just are so phenomenal that everybody stands up and goes, wow, that guy's phenomenal. Cozy was kind of the backbone of every band that he was in, including Sabbath.
Yes.
Right? So the only 2 original members there were the bassist, Bill Ward, right?
No. The only original member at the time was Tony Iommi. Well, if you want to count the keyboard player.
Yeah. There's
Jeff
not a lot of keyboards.
He was an original member, but he'd been in the band since the late 70s in Sabbath.
2 originals. Well, let's kind of take a step back and talk about the Dio years. Those 2 albums really kind of, I was definitely a Black Sabbath fan at the time because of Masters of Reality and how young I was and how influential that album was to me. But the two releases, because everybody thought once Ozzy left the band that they were over, that they were done. And Tony definitely proved them wrong. He brought in, an established singer that could hold his own, that had his own style, not only of singing, but of how he presented himself. He is, Dio claims to have, basically invented the horns. Yes. Right, the metal horns, which I think is true, but of course,
I think it's true as well.
Gene Simmons had to come in and said, "Oh, I was doing that on the front of the Destroyer album." It didn't have the same impact there, Gene, as Dio when Dio did it. It really took off. Fans started putting up their metal horns, and still do to this day because of Dio bringing it to the forefront.
Yeah, Dio did it because his grandmother did it. I mean, Dio's the originator, let's face it.
Which is pretty scary. If your grandmother's coming at you with the devil horns trying to chase away demons, it's like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
How many families had to, they were from like Romania or something like that?
They were Italian. They were Italian.
Yeah. That's close. So, I mean, I don't think anybody's ever disproven the fact that Dio's grandmother was doing the horns to chase away, evil spirits or whatever, evil eye, I guess it is. It's whatever it was called. And he just picked it up and used it during live shows. And it's still, I mean, you go to any metal show, people are putting their horns up.
Oh, definitely.
To show their respect. So Mob Rules, fantastic album. That was the first?
No, the first Dio was Heaven and Hell.
Heaven and Hell. So
in 80, and then 81, the Mob Rules comes out. I was supposed to see Sabbath on the Black and Blue tour with Blue Oyster Cult, but something happened and I couldn't go, probably because I was a little kid.
Wasn't that the tour they called the Black and Blue tour?
Yes, it was Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult.
And that's when Blue Oyster Cult had the ginormous Godzilla with red glowing eyes and flames coming out of it behind them. Like this was a full-on production in that day.
Yes, and they had the incredible laser show back then. It was
I was too young.
70s.
I do remember my sister's friends talking about that show, but of course I was a little kid, and the only song I knew by Blue Oyster Cult was "Don't Fear the Reaper," and I thought he said reefer, and you're not supposed to fear the reefer, but it turned out to be Reaper. I know that's kind of silly, but I was a little kid. Don't fear the reefer. I was like, okay, I'm not fearing no reefer, because.
Story: a friend of mine saw Sabbath on the Mob Rules tour at the Cap Center. A friend of mine, Pete Smith, and I remember him telling me after the show he was leaving, and someone had to use the bathroom during the show, and instead of going to the bathroom and missing any of Black Sabbath with Ronnie Dio, he had taken a dump in his seat.
Ew, that's disgusting, man. Oh my God. He just dropped trowel and just excuse my language, just dropped trowel and just took a dump right there.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, gross.
I'll never forget that.
I hope you weren't there. You just heard the story.
Yes. But he said it was foul.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. Because I just read something recently where Slipknot had somebody at their show who was pleasuring himself who got
pummeled. It was Korn.
Oh, it was Korn.
Okay, it was Korn.
Someone also left a deuce on the mosh pit floor after the show. That hasn't been confirmed, but I read a story that the two are intertwined.
All right, let's move on from the Dookie talk.
Yes,
But man, that is totally disgusting. I promise you, fans, listeners, people of Earth, that I will never take a dump in my seat at any concert I ever go to, ever.
Thank you, Jesus.
Well, when Ozfest was in its heyday, I got to see Black Sabbath at 4 of the shows. Let's see, May 24th, 1997, at what was Nissan Pavilion at the time, which is kind of like, it is Jiffy Lube Live, so it's kind of my local venue. Well, it is. It's not kind of. It is.
It's in your backyard.
7 miles from the house. Yeah, 7 miles from the house. Pre-game here, go there, do the VIP parking, take a left, and we're home. Whereas everybody else has to, go around the world in Bristow in order to get back on 66. So 97. Again, I saw Black Sabbath at Nissan Pavilion, and Slayer was on that. I believe was on that show. And this is the only time. And I've seen hundreds of shows at this particular venue. And there was, the way the lawn is set up, there's a middle section, there's a right section, there's a left section. Well, we were in the right section of the lawn because we were poor and couldn't buy pavilion seats. Or we were broke. We weren't poor. We were broke. We needed money for other things. We were young adults. We had to pay bills. But we were able to get lawn seats. And I remember looking over during Slayer and seeing all the way to the left, that portion of the lawn, there was a gigantic mosh, and it was violent. Like, they were really going. We had our own little mosh, but that one was particularly violent. And I saw Prince William County cops going into the mosh with their clubs to try to calm people down. And I just remember that cop is taking his life in his hands, going into a violent Slayer pit. And I think they did pull out a couple of guys. That were just ruining it for everybody else. But I just remember seeing Prince William County cops going up on the lawn and going to that particular part of the lawn where the mosh was to try to calm it down. It didn't work until they took out the two or three guys that were just making it hell for everybody else. I remember that show really well. And then I got the opportunity in 2016 on August 21st to see the End Tour with a good friend of mine who I worked with at the time, and his buddy, Rick Hamilton, had an extra ticket, and he called me, and I'm like, how can I say no? Right. Yeah. So we all went together, and I remember it being very emotional for all three of us because we thought it was the end, which it was the end for those guys. I don't think the original drummer was on that tour. I don't think that for some reason
it was Jimmy,
money issues.
Jimmy Caflutos from Ozzy's solo band filled in for Bill Ward. There was a money dispute.
I thought the guy from Rage Against the Machine played on that tour.
I think he played on the tour before that. Brad Wilkes.
Okay, Brad Wilkes. So he kicked that tour off, the End tour off, and then at some point left, and the other guy came in and kind of finished off the tour. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think Brad Wilkes played on. He maybe played on the album, the 13 album.
That's what it was. Yes, he played on the 13th album,
and then they brought in the drummer from Ozzy's solo band to do the tour
do the actual tour, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected again. Thank you, Johnny, for fact checking me on my old brain.
Right, it's hard to remember all this stuff. There's just it's hard to remember.
Yeah. Well, I do remember the end show, and I do remember it being emotional for all three of us. We had pavilion seats at that time because we were a little older and had a little bit more money. And Rick was so gracious to be able to offer me the ticket. That's the last show I've seen with him. We've tried to hook up and see other shows, but it just hasn't come together. You know, my family got older. My kids grew up. They're adults now. He recently had a child. You know, he's just now starting his life as a dad. So he does go to shows, but they're few and far between. And shout out to Rick Hambleton for taking me to see the End tour at Jiffy Lube Live in 2016 because I thought it was going to be the end.
Come on, let's hear Wild Bunch. Come on, don't fuck around. Come on!
They said it was going to be the end, and it was really. I mean,
it was their last tour. Yeah,
it was their last tour, right? And Ozfest fizzled out. They never came back to Bristow, Virginia after the 2004 show. They continued Ozfest, and there were iterations of not, Ozfest together, but they would do them in particular cities like Sacramento or stuff like that. It wasn't touring. It just after that 2004 year, the Ozfest never came back around in whatever iteration it was in. I just remember that show being really, really memorable in my brain because I was there just to see Black Sabbath, and it wasn't an Ozfest festival where there was 3 stages or 2 stages and every metal band that was anybody ever and really young artists that were working their way up. I wasn't distracted by all that, right? We weren't rushing back and forth to try to watch all that we could. We were there to see Sabbath, and it was freaking amazing. Black Sabbath. And Ozzy was on. In 2016, that End tour, Ozzy sounded fantastic.
Oh, I'll bet.
And then Johnny and I got the chance to actually see the very last tour, very last concert. It was only 4 songs.
Back to the beginning. Yeah.
Back to the beginning. Sabbath only played like 4 songs, but Ozzy did a solo set before Black Sabbath came on. And Jakey Lee was there. Zakk Wylde was there. He brought back a lot of the old members from those bands while he sat in that chair. Back to the beginning.
It was good. It wasn't great, but Ozzy apparently wasn't in the best of health at the time.
Well, that's kind of obvious now. Yeah. I mean, we all knew by watching that he wanted to get up out of that chair.
Yes,
and my neighbor
definitely.
Bill sitting next to me going, why doesn't he stand up? And I said, because he'll probably fall down, and they don't want him to fall down. So they got him come to find out later, they had him strapped in the chair so he didn't try to get up.
Yes.
And he wouldn't fall out of the chair.
Yep. I read that too as well.
And that was we got the live stream. We watched it from the very beginning all the way to the very end, all 8 hours of it or 7 hours of it. We ordered some food. We went right back to watching it and analyzing it like we do now, just talking to each other in the living room. And Bill joined us for the Ozzy set and the Black Sabbath set. And of course, he isn't as a big fan as we are, but he enjoyed it a lot. And then, of course, a few weeks later, it meant even more to him because Ozzy wasn't with us anymore.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Ozzy has left its mortal coil.
Yeah. So Black Sabbath is part of my soul. It's kind of crazy to think about. It's part of my DNA. And when I hear all these old songs, I get a flush of memories of being in high school and hanging out with Mike in the basement, and jumping around, playing air guitar, and it seems so sad now. But some of these two albums were just, I was high school, and this was walking around with my cassette player and playing cassettes and just being a Sabbath fan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So there we go. That's our Sabbath memories. We're sad that Ozzy isn't with us anymore, but we still have our memories. And they're, I don't ever remember, other than that very first Capitol Center show, which I had explained on a previous show that the sound was horrible and Ozzy wasn't having a good night. Every other show, and when we came back into the auditorium after looking for the Metallica's tour bus, the last 3 or 4 songs they had worked it out and it sounded much better, and Ozzy was a little bit more coherent and was singing his ass off. And I think that I haven't looked at the set list, but I'm pretty sure they did a few Black Sabbath songs during the time we came back in, and that's probably what made it so special.
They did. They didn't do much Sabbath. They did Iron Man, I think, and that was it.
Yeah.
And Paranoid as an encore.
Yes. So if we saw 4 songs, 2 of those were Black Sabbath songs for the encores. But you can fact check me on that like you have the last 2 times I've been wrong. That's for fact checking me. So that's our Black Sabbath stories. We will continue to be Black Sabbath fans till the end of time. And I just kind of want to close the broadcast with this.
Go get your own damn podcast.
Right on. Get your own damn podcast.
Yeah. That's what we did. Go get your own damn podcast.
Right on. Get your own damn podcast. That's on one of my hot buttons.
Go get your own damn podcast.
Right on. Get your own damn Okay. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate the time. We've got a lot of positive feedback. We're gaining momentum. We really enjoy doing this.
Oh, let's not forget about the stickers we have to give away. Do we want to come up with some way to get those out to the people?
Yeah, if anybody wants did you give your email out, Johnny, and send them out, or I can give my email? I hadn't really thought about it.
Let's ponder that till next episode.
All right. Till next time.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Suffering Meatball Chronicles. Thanks for rolling through the memories with us, no matter how fuzzy the details were. We might not get every date right or remember every band name perfectly, but the energy, the stories, that's what really sticks. This show is all about celebrating the magic of live music, one meatball memory at a time.
Until next time, keep your ears open, your heart loud, and never trust your set list memory after beer number 3 or 4
or 5 or 6.
How many you had in the parking lot.